this chapter that we're addressing this week is called Money Talks, Who Translates? So Money Talks, of course, is a sad and commentary. Maybe it also has some positive elements, as we're going to be discussing. When you have money, you have influence. That's how it is. And if a person is corrupt or aggressive or abusive, but if they have money, they can do things, they can accomplish things. And on one hand, it seems extremely unfair because a person who's a beautiful, refined human being with a good character and personality, loving, why would they be considered less important just because they don't have the money to buy things? And yet we do live in a materialistic world, so money can epitomize, maybe more than any other thing in life, the dichotomy, the tension between what is real and what is not real. Because with money, you can put on a show, you can buy influence, even though you may want to buy love and other eternal truths, you perhaps cannot. Don't buy me love, no one can buy love, but you think you can. So money creates a distortion, essentially, that someone with money has power and influence beyond what they deserve. This doesn't mean everybody with money is that way, but that's the power of money. You see how people react when they're around people of wealth. And much has been written about this. You look at the discussions of Adam Smith's capitalism or Karl Marx's socialism and the different variations of each. We've never really come to peace with how we deal with money. We really haven't. Because on one hand, you need money to live. On a very basic level to survive. For shelter, for clothing, for food, for other needs, educating our children. When you have more money, you're able to purchase more, you can have more comforts. So on one hand, it seems to be an absolute necessity. However we define money, whether it's trading goods as it once was or now using gold or bills or currency or credit. But the point is that type of equity, let's call it that. On the other hand, look what money does to people. They tell the story of this very wealthy man who's a miser. And in his younger years, he was an excellent student of one of the great sages of the 16th century, 17th century. The sage comes to the town and he hears about this student that he once had. He says that people were cursing him. They said, here's a man, wealthy, rich, filthy rich, can help anyone and refuses to help anybody. Now this great sage, this great teacher, decided to go visit his old pupil from bygone years. And he knocks on the door. There's, of course, one servant, another servant. They finally get to the host and say, who's there at the door? Oh, his rabbi, of course. He invites him in, gives him a royal treatment, respectfully and so on. And as they begin to talk, the rabbi realizes, the teacher and mentor of this man from years ago, realizes exactly what the townspeople are talking about. A person who's completely self-consumed, showing off, arrogant, pompous. He saw something interesting in his house. He saw that he had collections of many sorts, art, literature, different musical instruments. But one particular thing stood out. He had an assortment of mirrors. Mirrors. All types of mirrors, large mirrors, small mirrors, with all kinds of ornaments. A collection of mirrors. So the rabbi says to him, I see you have a lot of mirrors. He says, yes, I think I have the greatest collection of mirrors in Europe. He says, really? Show me. And he shows him the mirrors. Of course, a mirror is a reflection of yourself. So he says to the man at some point, he says, let me ask you something. What is unique about a mirror? I mean, you have also panes of glass. He had large windows, bay windows, this type of window, that type of window. He says, what's the difference between a piece of glass and a mirror? He says, come on, you don't know? It's the very most obvious thing everybody knows. The difference is they're both made of glass. One, you smear silver on the back of the glass, it turns it into a mirror. So this great rabbi says to him, so let's stand by a window. He looks at the window. He says, what do you see? He says, I see a bunch of people. And to tell you the truth, they're a bunch of no good niggas. They're parasites. They're users. They move over to one of the mirrors. He says, what do you see in the mirror? You see myself. I see you. I distinguished rabbi. And this great teacher says to him, the difference is that when you smear silver on a piece of glass, instead of seeing others, all you do is see yourself. You see a reflection of yourself. Reminds us of the myth of narcissism. It comes from Narcissus, a Greek mythology of a person who spent his whole life looking for someone to love, someone who really would appreciate him. He could never find love until one day he's standing by a pool of water, looks into the pool, and what does he see? A reflection of himself. And he falls in love. Passionate love. But he only can find that lover when he's standing by the pool. A reflection of himself, which became the root of the word narcissism. Silver. That's what money can accomplish. How distorted it can create human beings. I remember once talking to my granddaughter. I called her over, she was 4 years old, and I said to her, Luba, I'd like to give you a gift of $100 million. Obviously I didn't have it. I wanted to just see her reaction. She looked at me, giggled, and just ran off, as if it meant nothing. I called her back, and I said, Luba, I want to give you a gift of 100,000 pieces of Lego. You know, Lego, little things that show. She got so excited. She says, when can we go? I don't need 100,000 right now. Let's begin with a little less than that. And I realized money is not something that children really respect, for that matter, or appreciate. Now, many of us would just dismiss it because children are naive. And I saw it as a sign of purity, of innocence. Because at the end of the day, money has no value of its own. It's purchasing something else. It depends what you buy with it. It depends what you use it for. But it's a lure. It's that seductive power that it has over us. Because with it, we feel we can accomplish anything, creates that silver on the back of the glass, that instead of seeing others, which is what children do, they play, there's giving, give and take, and we begin to see ourselves. So in the worst scenario, what money does is it distorts reality, our own reality and the reality of others as they see us. I was speaking to someone, a high net worth person, a while back. It's not the first time I heard this. He says to me, since I made a fortune, I don't trust anyone. All my friends, I don't know if they're being friendly or they want something from me. I said, it's very sad, very lonely and sad. I don't know how he was looking at me. I definitely didn't solicit him. But my point is, it's a very interesting paradox. On the other hand, the Talmud says that money puts someone up on their feet. A pauper is sometimes considered like someone who's dead. Not out of his value, but because of the oppression, the affliction of poverty. The impoverished becomes very difficult. It crushes the human spirit and dignity. So which one is it? Is it a blessing or a curse? A vice or a virtue? So that money talks, we know. Who translates? That's the big question here. So let me give you a spiritual take on money. Let's call it the Kabbalah of money, if you wish. Now you'd say money is the epitome of materialism. It symbolizes how much you've earned, how much power you have, how much influence you have, your social status. How does it defined by spiritual elements? So here's the thing. The Talmud tells that Rebbe, he was the great sage, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi was his name, he would honor the wealthy. When you read a statement like that, you say, 1 second. People honoring the wealthy would usually be someone who's into money, who needs something, but not a sage, a mystic, a powerful spiritual leader, one of the greatest leaders. Why would he honor the wealthy? And the poor don't have something to be valued and honored. They're also created in the divine image. And the statement comes to be explained the following way. It's a fascinating way of understanding what money is. Money is a gift given by God to some individuals with full confidence that individual will be wise enough to know that it's only on loan. It's in order for you to share with others. To cite a very fascinating episode in the Medrash. It's an interesting story. King David turns to God and says, why did you create social classes, the poor and the wealthy? You have all the gold and the silver. You could have distributed it equally. Why did you make some people poor and some people wealthy? You'd be surprised at the answer. God says, because without it, who would do kindness in this world? If everybody was equal, nobody would need and nobody would need to give. I want people to be able to do kindness. And to do kindness, I have to give some and deprive others. Which, of course, tells us that every person has something to give. But we're talking financially. And God is saying, I am not giving it to you because you deserve it. I am giving it to you because I am trusting you. That you will be wise enough to understand that you have wealth in order to share it with another. That's why you have that wealth. It's a whole different take on it. Well, that person said, 1 second, I earned it. I worked hard. I was ingenious. I outsmarted my competitors. Yeah, you can have all that and not necessarily succeed. So Rebbe, who was sensitive to the soul's mission in life, honored people with wealth because he was saying, if God entrusted you, I honor you. Because God entrusts that you will use it the right way. So that takes a whole other spin on finance, in general, on all our gifts. Someone who's blessed with more intelligence, someone who's blessed with more experience. And who in this world doesn't have something that another doesn't have? It's an interesting law that says every person has something to give. That's why even a pauper is responsible to give charity in the amount that he can give. Because it's the dignity of the human being that we're able to give. Who is the wise man, said the sages? The one who learns something from everybody. Which means everyone has something to teach, to give, and everyone has something to receive. So to go back to the theme, therefore, money, like everything in life, is neutral. Because at the same time, even though I spoke about the vices and how it can turn a person into a selfish human being, but there's also the other side. What has been built through charity, through tzedakah, through giving? Institutions. How many people have been helped? Billions, trillions of dollars, especially in the last century. Yes, in a country like the United States. I'm not getting into whether you agree with all the places charity is given. But the idea, I remember when there was that earthquake in Haiti a few years ago. And it's not the only case, but one case. Haiti, a poor, impoverished country. What do you think happened when there were earthquakes or volcanoes in the past? Go back, study some history. All the neighbors would then pillage, rape, loot, steal everything from that land that was vulnerable. When it came to Haiti's earthquake, what was happening? Countries around the world were competing to provide humanitarian aid, medical support, and other things to help brethren. Not because there was any opportunity. There are changes that have been made. I know there's a lot of complaining about the world in which we live, but we cannot deny the charitable elements that exist in society today. I was taken when I remember the giving pledge that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates established, challenging billionaires to give away 90% of their wealth in their lifetimes. The giving pledge, check it out online. So first, all of us, especially the skeptics, began to dig, what's the catch here? What tax write-off, what benefits, somewhere there has to be a catch. And I can tell you, nobody was able to find the catch as much as people investigated. I found that to be very messianic. The idea to understand wealth, that it's a gift given to you. In doing some research, I went and I found this essay written by Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie, I think the first billionaire in the United States, of Pittsburgh, built the steel industry, was an immigrant. So he wrote an essay called The Gospel of Wealth. I think first it was initially called Wealth, then it became The Gospel of Wealth. And in it he writes, he says, when a person is blessed with an disproportionate amount of wealth, beyond what you can even spend, what is their responsibility? He says the socialist system would impose upon that person to give that money away or never earn it in the first place because it belongs to the public. imposed. A very strict capitalist system, it says you do whatever you want with it. You earned it, even though it can be obscene wealth when people are starving and suffering from other things. He says his feeling is, and I always wondered where he got this from, his feeling is that the person himself who made that wealth, that earned that wealth, has a responsibility to return it from where it came, the public. So self-imposed charity is what he advised. Then I suddenly found that Gates and Buffett were very much influenced by that article. It actually comes from the Jewish approach to money. Not that the meek shall inherit the earth. Not that poverty is a blessing. As Tevye in the Fiddler of the Roof says, poverty doesn't make you less, but it's definitely not a blessing. Wealth is a blessing. In the Bible, in the Torah, in Jewish history, wealth is always considered a blessing. As I explained, because it gives you opportunities. You can use it for good things, you can use it, unfortunately, for negative things. So how then do we relieve this narcissist, self-focused self-interest that money can create in a human being? It's through self-imposed giving, recognizing, why am I here in this world? I am here to be a giver. And as a result, Carnegie went ahead. He built, single-handedly, you know what he built? He built the library, public library system. Because he felt education is a key to growth and opportunity. Many people couldn't afford a higher education. So creating a library of books that people can freely access. Now, I'm not saying this man was perfect. I'm sure people have his critique about him. But it's interesting that there's an element of understanding your soul's mission. There's a chapter in Tanya. Tanya is the magnum opus written by Rav Shneir Zalman of Liadi, a great sage and scholar and mystic. School of thought where I grew up, Chabad Hasidic thought. Chapter 37 in Tanya. I strongly recommend you check it out. My chapter, Wealth and Charity, in Torah Meaningful Life, cites from it. And he speaks about the power of charity, of tzedakah. And he compares it to the power of wealth in general. We see how difficult it is to give. Many people will give their time, their resources, advice, but to give money is very difficult. At the same time, it's one of the greatest achievements, and he explains why. He says money is called soul energy. So this way, if someone asks you to volunteer and help, so your challenge is, do you want to give your time or not? But money represents your whole soul's energy. The time you invested, your ingenuity, your creativity, the work. It reflects your value. Not just the value of your arms or legs, the value of all of you. And as such, that's very difficult to give up of your flesh and blood. And precisely for that reason, when a person is able to do that, what they're doing is transcending. Spirit transcends matter. Recognizing that the material world, which is a self-contained universe, it's all about me, self-interest, egocentric, is weakened and tamed because you've turned our arrow around. Instead of it's directed toward you here, is directed outward. It relieves the tension between matter and spirit, and ultimately creates the healthiest type of human being, a human being that breathes. Someone that just inhales cannot survive. It's inhaling and exhaling, a give and take. Learning to give. Learning that the circulation of life, like the blood of the pumping heart, the pulsating heart, contraction, expansion, exhale and inhale, is the core and base ingredients of what makes a human being a living entity. Taking, that scene in Frisco Kid, the guy, the train robber, he robs everybody of their jewelry and money, and before he jumps off the train, he says, remember the lesson in life. It's always better to give than to take. And meanwhile, he proceeds by taking and ripping, robbing them. But actually what he said was correct. Tell me how you feel. When you take, you become more insecure and you need more, you hoard more. When you give, there's something about it that just enriches the human being. The dignity of giving, the confidence of giving. of knowing I can give and not be less for it, actually be more for it. It's a challenge because we've been trained, dog eats dog, it's all about me, 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 me. And if I don't take care of myself, who will take care of me? So it is up to us to take the money that talks and translate it. We can translate it the wrong way, and it turns into a liability, no matter how wealthy one is. Sir Moses Montefiore, a great wealthy man, lived in Great Britain under Queen Victoria, a very big philanthropist, built a lot of Jerusalem. You have a lot of institutions named Montefiore. Queen Victoria once asked him and said, Sir Moses, tell me, what is your net worth? Okay, I'll get back to you. I need to calculate it. He gets back to the Queen and says to her a certain amount. She looks at him, she says, Sir Moses, you mock me. I personally know your holdings are far more than what the number you've just given me. No, Your Majesty, he said. You asked me what I'm worth. You didn't ask me what I'm holding on to right now. What I'm worth. What I'm holding on to right now is not really mine. It can be lost in a bad investment. It can be lost in a war. It can be confiscated, robbed. I right now control it, but I can't say I own it. It's not mine. I gave you the number of the amount of charity I have given. That I really own because that I spent where I wanted to spend it. Hospitals, towns, poor people, different special needs. That money forever is mine, even when I will not be here any longer, because it built something eternal. That is what I'm worth. Now, it takes wisdom to understand that. You don't usually see this. But that doesn't mean there isn't hope for the human race. Each of us. You don't have to be wealthy to have this attitude. People say, if I make $1 billion, I'll start giving charity. It doesn't work that way. A giver is a giver, even if they have 1 penny. It's a disposition. It's an attitude. So it's up to us to translate. Years ago, and I think that's where I took this title from, the Wall Street Journal had an advertisement. Money talks, we translate. Yeah, they translate the acquisition of money, the trading of money, and so on, the growth of money and wealth. But translating money is much deeper than that. It's translating the very purpose of life. Now, why are we here? Why were we blessed with our gifts? Because it's an opportunity for you to make the world a better place, for you to become a giver, to bring giving into the world. Ask any person, tell me, would you want your children to be takers or givers? Even takers don't like to say that I want my children to be takers, even though they often teach their children, you're special, you're better, and so on. No. Money doesn't make anybody better. What makes you better is what you do with it. So, it's a very interesting study of humankind, human race, when we think about how we look at money, how we worship it, value it like a golden calf. Yes, it can be real idolatry. Idolatry doesn't always mean an idol. It can be gold and silver and money and everything that money brings. But you show me a person in this world that due to money became happier, more loving, kinder, gentler. There are people with money that are extremely beautiful people. There are people who are impoverished, people who are very poor who are beautiful people. There are people who are wealthy that are miserable people. Selfish. And there are poor people that are selfish and miserable and bitter. Money itself does not change who you are. It could change who you are, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So it's an excellent opportunity, especially in a time like ours, where we are being tested in ways we have not experienced, most of us, in our lifetimes. How will we do? Are you going to be a taker or a giver? There was this guy that fell out of a rowboat with his friends, and they extended an oar to him. And they said, Jack, here, give me your hand. Give us your hand. No. So the friend says, Jack does not know how to give. Tell him, take my hand. Take the oar, and you'll see. Hey, Jack, take the oar. He grabbed it immediately. We are here to become givers, not takers. And that makes all the difference. Thank you very much. This has been Simon Jacobson, Meaningful Live. Please share, comment, feedback, thoughts, critique. We're here every Sunday live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And I look forward to hearing more from you and hopefully getting your feedback and thoughts. And it is a symbiotic world in which we live, a give and take, breathing, inhaling and exhaling. You translate. Thank you. Be well.